At the bottom of an old tea chest, in a former bishop's house in Cavan, the lid was lifted on a piece of history from the First World War. Inside, in a dusty envelope, 10 letters were discovered, written by soldiers at the Western Front. It's Christmas, 1917. The letter writers in the trenches are from the parish of Dundela in East Belfast. They write home to their rector and the parishioners, thanking them for sending out parcels of comforts.
109th Field Ambulance, British Expeditionary Force, 2nd of February, 1918. Dear Mr. Barton, I have just received the parcel from St. Mark's containing comforts, for which I send my many thanks. I need hardly state how useful these little things are out here, where the weather conditions vary so much and where one has not always a very enticing place in which to spend his hours on duty. However, we can only carry on, hoping that this will be our last year out here, and that next Christmas and New Year will be spent in the more congenial atmosphere of our own homes. Again, thanking you for your useful gifts and trusting that Mrs. Barton and yourself are enjoying good health. I remain sincerely yours, Ernest P. Palmer.
The envelope containing the letters was poignantly marked "Soldiers' Presents" by the man who received them, Reverend Arthur Barton, rector of Dundela during the war. He kept them safe, along with other memorabilia from his time there, and brought them with him when he became Bishop of Kilmore in 1930.
And we learn from the letters how he is providing almost a service, going around the community, looking after almost the wives and the children of the men who are at the front. And as a serviceman, I suppose you could ask for nothing more from a minister than to provide that service back at home and to put your mind at ease while you have other things on your mind.
Today they are safely housed in the representative church body library, where a group of local researchers from the East Belfast and Great War Project have come to see them for the first time.
The project started for us in 2013, just at the tail end of last year. Although it began for me as a personal journey back in 2009 at Queen's University when I wrote a dissertation called East Belfast, the UVF and the Great War. The three main elements of the project which I have identified are the database, which will go online, and we want to have that online and searchable for the general public in 2016. We also have a community engagement aspect where we want to transfer our skills and empower community groups to be able to carry out their own research on the Great War, and we feel that that's very important. And the third element is the book itself, which we want to write a book which will tell the story of the Great War, but from the perspective of the men and women from East Belfast.
The letters are significant because they are the only known letters by men from East Belfast to survive. There's expectation when the file of Barton's Dundela papers is opened for the first time. Shoneen and Jason, this is the file of Arthur Barton's letters from his time in Dundela that we found in the Sea House in Kilmore. At the end are the letters from the soldiers in the envelope in which they were. But on top of that, then there's other material, treasured things that he had from his time as rector, service sheets, the babies club, that kind of thing. So you'll find those first, and then at the bottom the envelope, and then the 10 letters from the trenches. So in your own time. Then they examine the envelope and 10 letters themselves. You see the envelope in which all of the letters were originally folded up.
Did you originally discover these?
Yes, this is the envelope which we took out of at the bottom of the tea chest with everything else. And it did strike a chord because you can read out there what it's just on the back, what his annotation, what it says.
It says soldiers' presents. I can only imagine what you thought whenever you read that, what was going to be inside.
What's inside. So the first letter there written in pencil, because that's presumably all that the writer had to hand. A very poignant date. And he's writing, he just puts somewhere.
26th of January, 1918. Somewhere. Dear Sir, I take the pleasure and opportunity of writing you these few lines to let you know I received your parcel of comforts all right, for which I send you my very best thanks. They will come in very useful at the present time, for the weather here now is very cold. It helps to lift one's heart a bit when they get something from their friends at home. I have nothing more to say just now, so I close again thanking you for your kindness. Yours sincerely, J. McKernan.
So this one's very evocative. And the first thing you see here is active service, so you're in no doubt that this is conflict related.
On active service, France, to the rector and members of St. Mark's Church, Dundela. I thank you all for your kind thoughts of me, and also for the very useful box of comforts you sent. The box contained just the things that are needed, I think most, by the men in the trenches. Socks are in great demand when the weather is bad and mud is everywhere, and the mitts and woolen headgear are desirable, if not essential, when the weather is cold. We had both kinds of weather on our last trip in the line, so you can imagine how thankful I was that your parcel had arrived the day before the battalion went into the trenches.
So we can see here that it's the 20th of January 1918, and as the men were writing these letters on the front line, the people back home in Dundela had just completed their Christmas and their New Year as prepared by Arthur Barton.
Mm-hmm. And it's taken until the end of January for the parcels which they had made up in the build-up to Christmas and as part of their Christmas celebration, if you like. It's taken from before Christmas to January for them actually to receive them and then have the time to respond and say thank you.
And this one's very easy to read, actually. It's by R.A. Bruce, and I believe that that's Robert Bruce. Please convey my sincere thanks to the parishioners of St. Mark's for their very useful and much appreciated gift, which arrived safely. Often think of the many happy hours I had in the choir, and hope that, God willing, I shall one day return there and renew old acquaintances. So he's very much thinking of home.
Thinking of home. The content of the letters conveys the awfulness of the conflict. So clearly the discovery of these letters is important for reconstructing local history and the contribution of these men to the Great War effort.
There's nothing quite compares to getting your hands on the authentic real documents, especially as a keen researcher and a historian. It reminded me almost of going to see the old newspapers in Belfast in the newspaper library. It doesn't quite compare to seeing them on the computer screen, you know, and I don't think the men who wrote these letters would have imagined 100 years ago me travelling from Belfast to the RCB library in Dublin in order to get these letters out of the archive and be so impressed by them and interpret them and speak about them and their context in the Great War.